Catching a salmon is not impossible, though sometimes it seems like it when you haven't caught one before. But don't worry, because in this video, we are going to show you everything that you need to know to finally battle one of these beasts.
In this video, we're going to cover when to fish for salmon, where to fish for salmon, how to fish for salmon, tips on landing salmon, and what to do with your catch.
And first, we'll talk about when. There are primarily two runs of salmon from two primary species. The spring run starting in March and April, and the fall run starting later in August. Salmon species start and end their journey in the river system. They will start their life out as a simple egg, and as that hatchling begins to hatch, it becomes known as a fry, which will eventually travel down towards the ocean, where it will mature in the ocean. Eventually, those fish begin to push back up the river system so that they can spawn and start this whole cycle all over again. This push happens in two different cycles. The spring fish, primarily Chinook, go up into the headwaters where they sit and wait for the second fall run of Chinook and Coho to join them, and they finally spawn. And now we move on to talking about where to fish for salmon. Your first step is going to be to use mapping software to find state parks, which you can eventually have your own locations. But I want to talk about the structure of the river and where the salmon is found. So salmon typically like to hang out in like the heavy white water or near the seams of the river. The heavy white water is going to be found in the riffle section, and the seam is going to be separating main channel or other features. Another great seam is where two rivers collide. One thing too about salmon is they will typically always show you that they are there by jumping. So if you're not seeing fish, don't be afraid to move. Now we're going to talk about how to catch a salmon. Now you can most certainly use things like spinners. They do most certainly work, and they do catch salmon. But in this video, I'm definitely going to highlight using a bobber with eggs. So let's look at that setup.
We're going to need a salmon float, a bobber stop, 2 beads, a weight inline, or we can have a clip swivel cannonball. But the weight needs to match the size for the float, like our main line. So we just simply slide the bobber stopper into the main line through the tube, push the knot of the bobber stopper upward, cinch her tight. We remove this plastic piece. We can slide that up and tighten this as tight as we can. We're going to cut the ends of it. Our bobber stop. We're going to slide a bead onto the main line to the bobber stop, and it's going to stop at the stop. Make sure that the top of the bobber is going towards the fishing rod all the way through. This is a 1 ounce bobber. That's what I prefer for salmon. Another bead. You can either use a inline weight, or you can use a clip swivel that has a cannonball weight clipped onto it on the clip. I prefer to use the inline weight, but if you were going to use the cannonball weight, you would just tie the main line onto the top, would tie the leader line to the bottom of the barrel swivel. I'm going to tie this onto the barrel swivel end and cinch it tight. It's a fisherman's knot. Clip off the tag end. Then we just take the other end of our inline weight, and then we are going to need a leader tied up with a salmon egg loop so that we can attach row to our hook and cinch it on without losing it. So you're going to need a hook and you're going to need a leader. Run it through the eye of the hook. We want to hold that with the hook with our finger. We want to begin to wrap that around the shank. So the tighter you wrap this, the better. I like to wrap a good halfway down the shank. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take the other end of the leader, and we're going to run it backwards through the eye and up towards basically the rod. Run that through there. We're going to pull this forward. We get a big loop. The top half of that loop we want to pin with this finger that's holding that other tag end. Take the bottom half of the loop. We want to wrap that up and over the top of the loop. Now when we do this, as you can see, things start to get just a little bit crazy and tangled. So what you want to do is you stick your finger right here, you stop, grab right here that's going up to the rod, and just pull all of that through all of the nasty. And then maybe do this bottom portion of the loop again, maybe 1 or 2 more wraps, clear out all this slack again by pulling this forward. Cinch this all the way tight. Make sure that we don't pin our finger when we do so. You have a nice salmon egg loop. You can back this up and you can wrap your eggs around here. Hook your eggs onto the hook and wrap this around the eggs and cinch it down tight so that the eggs stay on. Trim off the tag end and we will tie that to the bead chain. So after we trim out this tag end, this is ready to fish. Bobber stop to a bead, then to our bobber, to another bead, to our weight, and then eventually to our leader, all the way to a hook that has a salmon egg loop.
Now you can move the stopper so that the slip float will drop down to your desired depth of fishing, but pay close attention to your bobber that it's not too low and it has the proper suspension. Now when you are drifting the bobber, continue to mend your line and keep it straight so that when the bobber does go down, you're ready to capitalize on setting that hook and hooking that salmon. Now let's talk about some tips on landing your fish now that you know how to get them. Now everybody wants to hold every salmon that they hook, but the reality is that you're not always going to net every fish that you hook. When the fish goes to jump, you're going to want to drop the rod tip down, and definitely when the fish wants to run, you definitely have to let Chinook and Coho run. Salmon are notorious for not coming to the net on the first go, but with some patience and some willingness, you will eventually land your salmon. And now there's a few things you should do with your catch. For the best table quality, you should bleed your fish immediately. This is going to help with the table quality, and if your fish is a female with eggs, it will do good things for your eggs so that later you can cure them for better bait. Our channel also has an amazing video on how to do this, so make sure to go check that out.
I'm going to show you guys how to properly bonk and bleed a salmon. What you're going to want to do, blunt object, want to hit him right here on the top of the head. He's dead. Grab those gills, grab all of them, and just give him a rip. Rip them out. Take your fish, grab it by the tail, and just shake it. Just take your fingers and press down, run them down the spine, because you're going to push all that blood that's in the spine down to the head of the fish. Shake it all out. And you just give them that freaking, you know, because this is working all that blood, and you want to do this right when you catch the fish. That is it. That is properly how you bonk and bleed a salmon.
Don't forget to like this video.
It's a coho.
What is hooked up on a salmon? Subscribe to the channel for more.
Oh, always mad.
And remember to enjoy yourselves out there. Until next time, guys, we will see you.